Hey gang, and welcome back to another EDH gameplay. This week I'm joined by 3 new players and we have 4 new decks for you. I'm playing Ezuri, Claw of Progress, Max is playing Sidisi, Undead Vizier, Ulyss is playing Xenagos, God of Revels, and Arnaud is playing Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. For an opener, I keep Breeding Pool, Llanowar Elves, Phyrexia Metamorph, Gyre Sage, Genesis Wave, Wood Elves, and Aestheticism. Max keeps a hand with 2 Swamps, Reaver Demon, Reaper from the Abyss, Ghoulcaller Gisa, Rise of the Dark Realms, and Vampiric Tutor. Arnaud keeps a hand with Sunken Hollow, Swamp, Savannah, Isolated Chapel, Drowned Catacomb, Hand of the Praetors, and Reaper of Sholdred. Lastly, Ulyss keeps a hand with Mountain, Forest, Xenagos the Reveler, Savage Ventmaw, Somberwall Sage, Beast Within, and Pelakrinos, World Eater. Ulyss wins the die roll, and he begins. For his first turn, he plays a Mountain and passes to me. For my turn, I play Breeding Pool untapped, take 2 damage, and cast Llanowar Elves. Arnaud plays Sunken Hollows and passes to Max. Max plays a Swamp and passes. Ulyss does something similar, playing a Forest and passes to me. I play Inkmoth Nexus, then tap my 2 lands to cast Gyre Sage. Moving to combat, I swing Llanowar Elves at Ulyss. Arnaud plays a Swamp for his turn and then casts Plaguemere, which is kinda cool in Atraxa as it ramps and can infect. At the end of his turn, Max casts Vampiric Tutor. Max draws the card he put on top, plays a Swamp, and passes. Ulyss plays a second Mountain for the game and casts Somberwall Sage, which means he'll have potentially 6 mana for creatures on turn 4. I play Tranquil Thicket tap for my turn, then cast Trigon Predator in hopes of dissuading someone from attacking me with their Infect artifact creature. And Gyre Sage also gets an Evolve counter. Arnaud plays Isolated Chapel for his turn, then casts Hand of Praetor, really committing to that Infect plan. Max plays his 3rd Swamp and passes. Ulyss misses his land drop, but that doesn't stop Xenagos from joining the party. He passes to me. For my turn, I play a Forest, then move to combat, swinging Trigon Predator at Arnaud. He takes 2 damage, and I blow up his Plaguemere. My second main phase has Phyrexian Metamorph coming into play as a Somberwall Sage, cause I want in on some of that sweet creature ramp. Arnaud plays Tundra for his turn, then moves to combat, swinging Praetor at Ulyss for 3 points of Infect damage. His second main phase has Atraxa come into play, who, at the end of his turn, bumps Ulyss up to 4 Infect counters. Brutal. Max plays Cabal Coffers for his turn, then, concerned how Atraxa can get out of control if left unchecked, casts Merciless Executioner, forcing everyone to sacrifice a creature. Ulyss fails to find another land and has to pass to me. For my turn, tapping the artifact that is Somberwall Sage in 1 Forest, Ezuri, Claw of Progress comes into play. I follow that up by casting Wood Elves to find a Forest and get 1 experience counter. Gyre Sage also gets another +1/+1 counter. Moving to combat, I animate Inkmoth Nexus, putting the +1/+1 counter from Ezuri onto it. I swing Trigon Predator at Max for 2. Arnaud plays Drowned Catacomb and then casts Reaper of Sholdred. Using the trigger from Hand of Praetor, he puts the Infect counter on me. Moving to combat, Hand of the Praetor swings at Max for 3 Infect counters, which makes everyone else at the table, except for Arnaud, kind of anxious about when Atraxa is going to hit the field next. Maxim doesn't draw a land for his turn, and instead passes. Ulyss, at the end of Max's turn, casts Beast Within on Hand of Praetor. Ulyss still can't find a land for his turn and has to pass to me. For my turn, I play a Forest, then tap 6, casting Prime Speaker Zagana, drawing 3 cards and putting 3/1/1 counters on her. Like a never-ending Pokemon, Gyre Sage evolves once more. Tapping Gyre Sage, I cast Freyalise, Llanowar's Fury. I make a 1/1 Llanowar Druid and get another experience counter. Moving to combat, I put the 3 +1/+1 counters on Gyre Sage, and I swing Trigon Predator at Arnaud again, because he's got everyone infected, and as soon as Atraxa hits the field, he's going to become threat number 1. Arnaud plays Hinterland Harbor, then casts Skyshroud Claim, finding Overgrown Tomb and Breeding Pool, and having them come into play untapped, taking 4. Casts Pended Prism, sunbursting it for 2. Not wanting to attack anyone, Arnaud passes to Max. Max misses his land drop and casts Blood Vassal before passing. Ulyss top decks his 3rd Mountain, slams it on the field, then casts Xenagos the Reveler, making a hasted 2/2 Satyr. Going to combat, he uses Xenagos' trigger to make the Satyr a 4/4 and swings at Max. My turn has Yavimaya Coast come into play. I uptick Freyalise, which gives Ezuri another experience counter, and then move to combat. Once again, I dump all the +1/+1 counters on Gyre Sage and swing Trigon Predator at Arnaud. My second main phase has me casting Genesis Wave for 13, which just feels awesome. I hit a Soul Ring, Forest, Temple of the False Gods, Bramblewood Paragon, Primal Vigor, a ton of lands, and a Craterhoof Behemoth, which makes me wish I did this before combat. Using a Soul Ring in one of my new lands, I cast Fertilid, but missed the trigger from Primal Vigor, so it only comes into play with 2/1/1 counters. Targeting Ulysse, I remove one of those counters, paying 3 mana, and allow him to go find a basic of his choice. I do this mostly because I'm a nice guy, but also to curry a bit of favor for him so he doesn't blow me out. Alnod plays a Blooming Marsh for his turn, then taps 6 to recast Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. Moving to his end step, he increases all of our infect counters by 1, but for some reason doesn't seem to want to pump all of my creature counters. Strange. Max plays a Rogue's Passage for his land, then casts Sidisi, exploiting herself to go find himself a card. Ulysse untaps with his 5 lands, and uses Xenagos the Reveler's +1 ability to generate 1 mana. With it, he casts Savage Vent Maw. He gives it +4/+4, haste, and kills Freyalise. He also nets himself 3 green and 3 red mana for attacking. In his second main phase, he uses the 3 green mana to cast Selvala, Heart of the Wilds, before passing to me. For my turn, prior to combat, I cast Thunderfoot Baloth, pumping all of my creatures by +2/+2 and giving them trample. Moving to my combat step, I put 8 +1/+1 counters on Craterhoof Behemoth, thanks to Ezuri's trigger and Primal Vigor. Responding to my declare attacks, Alnod responds by casting Anguished Unmaking, targeting Thunderfoot Baloth. I swing most of my creatures at Alnod because, frankly, Atraxa being on the field is a huge threat to everyone. He chumps a few of my creatures, but most of them still get through. He gains 4 from Atraxa, but then drops to 12 thanks to the rest of the elves. Unfortunately, because I'm bad at magic, I play Asceticism in my second main phase, which could have saved a couple of my elves had I had it out before. Alnod casts Phyrexian Hydra during his first main phase, and follows that up by casting Carrion Call before swinging Atraxa at Ulysse, gaining 4 life. At the end of his turn, Atraxa's Proliferate triggers, and we all gain 1 infect counter. In Max's main phase, he sacrifices Blood Vassal, then taps Cabal Coffers to generate a ton of mana, casting Reaver Demon from his hand. Since I can't regenerate any of my creatures with Asceticism, I opt to use Fertilid's ability, finding 1 land. After the land hits the field, I have to let all of my wonderful creatures go to the graveyard. Max being tapped out, he passes turn. For Ulysses' turn, he plays Palakranos, World Eater, then upticks Xenagos, gaining 1 mana to cast Bow of Nylea. Moving to combat, he uses Xenagos' trigger on Palakranos and swings at Max for 10. With nothing else, he passes to me. My turn, however, is pure gas. I pay 6 for Ezuri, then follow that up with a Hornet Queen, gaining 5 triggers because I can't read Primal Vigor. I then animate Inkmoth Nexus. Moving to combat, I put 18 +1/+1 counters on it, and with a tasty side dish of Karma, I swing it at Alnod. Naturally, he throws Atraxa in front of the lethal amount of infect damage and gains 4 life. Alnod's turn is pretty simple. He pays 8, Atraxa comes onto the field, and then he passes to his end step, proliferating all of our infect counters. Max goes for a game-winning play, casting Rise of the Dark Realms to get all of our creatures back. Alnod isn't really feeling this, and instead casts Fuel for the Cause, countering the spell and proliferating all of our infect counters again. He then casts Basal Thrall and moves to combat. With his plan shattered, Max swings the demon at Alnod, dealing 6 damage to him. Ulysses' turn sees Spellbreaker Behemoth come into play. Moving to combat, Spellbreaker Behemoth doubles in size and swings at me, thanks to a friendly nudge from Xenagos. I declare blocks with one of my 1/1 flying Death Touch insects, but Ulysses blasts it with Bow of Nylea, not wanting to lose his creature. He passes to me. I don't cast anything in my first main phase, and instead move straight to combat. Using Ezuri's trigger, I put 18 +1/+1 counters on Hornet Queen. I announce my attacks. Hornet Queen and the Inkmoth Nexus that I just animated are swinging at Alnod. Dead no matter what he does. Alnod opts to block the Inkmoth Nexus, which I pay 2 mana to regenerate. Despite gaining 4 life from Atraxa, he still dies. Max's turn has him tapping Cabal Coffers, which gives him a ton of mana, allowing him to cast Reaper from the Abyss. Then, tapping 2 Swamps and sacrificing Basal Thrall, he casts Magus of the Coffers. Moving to combat, Reaver Demon takes Xenagos the Reveler out of the game. Ulysse heads straight to his combat step for his turn, triggering Xenagos on Palakranos and swinging at Max. Not wanting to take 10, Max throws his Magus of the Coffers in the way of the Hungry Hydra. Ulysses' second main phase has him casting Skyshroud Claim, letting him find 2 forests, and then following that up with a Flame Shadow Conjuring. At the end of his turn, Reaper from the Abyss's Morbid ability triggers, killing Palakranos. For my turn, I cast Elvish Visionary, getting an experience counter and drawing a card. I then cast Simic Key Rune and move to combat, putting the 20 +1/+1 counters on one of my 1/1 Death Touch insects, and animating my Inkmoth Nexus to take out Max and Ulysse at the same time. Well gang, I hope you enjoyed that game. It was really cool to play at the new store, a lot of new commanders, a lot of new people, it's always a lot of fun. Atraxa this game was brutal. Alnod actually had 3 Atraxa decks built, which he was testing out that day, one with Planeswalkers, one with Infect, and one with +1/+1 counters, which is why he had so many proxies. The Infect one was probably his most threatening, as since we all had an Infect counter, it meant that every turn she stayed out brought us that much closer to death. She's a really great commander. I like that she's got so many cool abilities, and Proliferate just makes her super fun. When Max pulled out Sidisi, I was really anxious because I thought he'd be playing sort of an ad nauseum Storm deck, but mostly it was just a lot of fun with being able to cast demons, do a lot of things with huge mana, and probably a really just neat, fun mono-black deck. We actually played a game after this one where he played the same deck, and he was able to cast Sidisi something like 6 or 7 times. Needless to say, he was able to win quite unopposed. I think Ulysses' deck would have been a lot more aggressive had he not gotten mana screwed so early on. Losing that Somberwall Sage was a huge setback because he wasn't able to cast anything having not drawn lands for almost 3 turns in a row. I feel like Xenagos God of the Revels is the most on-theme Gruul deck because all it does is play big, huge creatures that want to smash in and deal a ton of damage. Awesome. Ezuri did a lot of good stuff and he was pretty much unopposed the entire game. Being able to cast that huge Genesis wave put me so far ahead and generated me so much resources, it was awesome. I really like his mechanic and I can kind of see why he's one of the more popular experienced ones after Marin. I'm always going to build tribal when I can, so it's no surprise that a lot of elves were in this deck. Anyway gang, I hope you enjoyed the gameplay. Please check back every Monday for new primers, top 10s, and gameplays. As always, thank you all for watching, and please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe.